I could do like a Mr. Rogers entrance theme song or something. I didn't think about that. I had to start the broadcast. So I'm here with Mayor Drake Dill of International Falls, Minnesota. We're going to have a conversation. We had a little bit of a quick chat beforehand. He's coming from a 4th of July meeting, which I'm actually, we didn't talk about that, but I'm very interested in if you have some stuff to share about the 4th of July, if you need some help, things like that. Um, and so we're going to talk about a whole host of array of topics that are pretty much relevant till now. And it's going to be kind of in a good faith conversation. And there's not going to be much gotcha unless he gets himself, I guess. So we don't really have to worry about that. And beforehand, I did ask him if there's anything that he wanted to avoid. I probably wouldn't have brought this up beforehand if he said yeah, but so he said no. So we can pretty much talk about whatever we want with him tonight, which is great because in the build up to this, I had a lot of people asking questions about things I should suggest. And so we get to talk about most of them if I can remember. So, welcome, Mayor Dill. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Let's start off with today. You started your day off with a meet and greet. You were with Representative Scraba and some other people. I wasn't
Yes.
there. My business partner Jim was.
Mhm.
And then you just left from a 4th of July meeting, and now you're here, and you wouldn't probably be here if you weren't the mayor. So I mean, I guess you could be like if we were
Could
talking
be,
about like
but
something else. I don't know, but we didn't know each other beforehand. So so one thing I've always thought that is a problem with running for elected office at your level, the mayor or the city council, because it's very comparable, is you guys don't get paid much, and it seems like you have to do a lot. So, how do you feel about your overall workload versus your compensation, and maybe even like that's probably not all why you're doing it. So a little bit about maybe why you're doing it too.
yeah, well, thank you. I always would say that if you want to get into politics, don't expect to make a good living doing it. But been blessed with a great wife and two young kids. Both my wife and I work in the community, and so I do the mayor along with my job. And so it's just one of those things where I feel like you get out of it what you put into it, but when you can help, it feels so good.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's definitely a good portion of some days or all day. Today was all day.
Yeah,
The
that's
last
crazy. Like even one day seems like a whole long day seems like a lot for what you get paid.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday this week, and then probably sometime tomorrow morning. I try and dedicate some dedicated time every day to it. My phone's always on. Um, I was over in Fort Francis today to visit with Mayor Hallekus about the importance of our relationship. Um, the
Did the
pay,
did the bridge come up to cut you off on it? Did you like? Is that anything that the city? I know it's a privately owned bridge.
mhm.
Is that anything that the city can do anything about, or is it just like the maintenance and kind of the cost of it now?
Well, it's interesting you bring that up because Mayor Hallekus has discussed that twice with me. We know that it's vitally important to commerce between both countries. So, vitally important, and there is ownership of the bridge. I forget exactly how that's divvied up, but I believe Mayor Hallekus has reached out to federal parliament in Canada about building a new bridge or partnering with an organization to upgrade that. Now, I don't know what that does to the fees or tolls or what that structure looks like. So I think that that's on the horizon potentially. And then it's interesting timing because of the land port of entry project coming up here locally
Okay.
that may be on hold uh, right now. I know that it's been worked on for a long
At the
time.
federal level, it's on hold.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
that's what my understanding.
Okay.
So, yeah, the I didn't know what the pay was when I was elected.
Oh yeah.
It's $350 a month.
Do you know what? I didn't know what the pay was when I was elected way back when either. I knew it wasn't a lot. I thought it was like $50 or something like that. So, yeah.
Yeah, and then there is a stipend for 'em along with it. So, uh, $55 for some city meetings, not regular city council meetings.
Yeah, that's included in the package, right? So,
And yeah, you know, if I go to St. Paul, there's mileage reimbursement and things like that. But there's no grand wage to go with it. But it's I'm doing it to offer something to the community.
yeah,
Um,
I mean, most people have to. I mean, I don't know who else could do it if they're doing it for the pay. Like that'd be pretty bad. So most people are offering it to the community. I guess a concern that I would have with it is just like the people who can't afford to offer it, as like a donation almost, because that's what everybody's kind of doing at some point. That's doing this public service, and so it'd be nice if like it was a little bit more comparable for the amount of learning like you have to put into it too, because when you go to a meeting you get packets and stuff. I'm assuming like you're reading your stuff and like learning about like the general things before you get there, so it's a lot.
yeah, so agenda day will be realistically tomorrow, Thursday. I'm the mayor, so I'll proof the agenda Thursday night, Friday morning. It comes out Friday by noon. Then we have all weekend to study it, all day Monday to ask questions, and then we have our city council meeting. So that's kind of the timing of the in between to the next city council meeting, and then the studying up to it and ask questions
Yeah,
if needed.
well, you got to kind of stay up to date throughout the rest of the month anyways, and then of course there's all those other committee meetings that you have, which I'm guessing for the mayor you have a bunch, especially with like the county. So are you, which I believe you're on Kita's board. When I watch those meetings, I see you on there. What other boards or collaborations are you doing with the county, because it'd be good to talk about some of those a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. So, Kita, the direct collaboration with the county, you know, unless we engage them somehow on an issue, um, certainly Kita. Unless I'm missing one, you know, we had a meeting with the county that was called over law enforcement opportunities in
Sure.
terms of where uh, the police department could or could not have been housed. So that was kind of the last big discussion about collaboration to a
When
degree.
did that go back far enough to weigh in on your decision for running for mayor, or was that not the beginning of an issue for that law enforcement center? Because it's been going on for a little while about the funding, but I know in the past few months it's really kind of been the hot topic. I mean, probably started the recall petition, well, maybe part of that recall petition and stuff like that.
Well, the it was never on my radar. I remember hearing in passing some of it.
Mm-hmm.
I did a lot of door knocking. I did meet and greets. I engaged as much as time would allow when I
I
was
want to say I
running.
did see door knocking actually. I forgot about that.
So
I think you stopped by.
yeah, I didn't hit every door in
Mm-hmm.
town, but I did what I could and had a lot of great conversations. And it's through that process that I learned that um, it was a bigger topic than I thought locally. So I had that advantage to a degree that I was educated by what the public's thoughts or concerns are.
Yeah,
Um,
it's good to get that feedback. Do you get feedback from like the public? Like I know some, I actually, I know some of the counselors have like their morning coffee hours and stuff like that that they go to. Where are you picking up like some of like the community feedback at public meetings, or are you getting out to these groups and hearing what people are saying out there?
yeah, to a degree. I was at Rotary last week, and well,
As
this
as a guest, or are you in Rotary now?
as a guest.
Okay, I
Uh,
used to be in it, and we'll
yeah,
be in it again soon. That's why I was just curious.
nice dedicated group of Rotarians. Had a great time, talked about things. But being the mayor now, the phone rings a lot, uh, all across town, the county, other
Mm-hmm.
areas, other towns. So I feel like the pulse of things, um, it hasn't been hard to keep track of. And if I'm in my office at City
That's
Hall,
because you're out and about so much, anyways, and
yeah,
that's the we have a whole kind of host of topics that we're going to get to, so we might jump around a little bit just so I don't keep him forever. But but so thanks for answering those first questions. The jail, a little bit more about that is that more or less kind of a done deal and everything's kind of signed off on? Is there still some wiggle room, or are they going to change anything ever? Like, what's is anything up in the air? I guess is the question.
I don't believe so. The council, of course, which I'm a part of, voted
Yes.
to move ahead with moving the police department towards a renovation of the Kataska or the old Kataska facility on Second Avenue East. Um, so unless something changes, that ship has sailed more or less. That was the council's will. And so could something derail that? I'm not aware of any showstoppers at the
Okay.
moment.
Yeah. So
Um,
so it seems like it's more or less a foregone conclusion, and then that now we just kind of need to root for them to make the best out of it, right?
that's
Hopefully
where
so.
it's at
Okay.
today.
Speaking of that recall, I know it's a hot topic online right now, and I believe the signatures were either turned in for most of the, not yourself, but I believe all four other counselors. I could be wrong about that, and which is a big deal for like you no matter what, right? Like it's going to affect your life no matter how this shakes out, and how you're who you're going to collaborate with and all of that. So not to beat a dead horse but about this topic, but what are your what's your overall opinion on this recall? And also, like, do you understand, from my understanding, it's about overspending a lot of it. I could be wrong about that, so maybe you know maybe what it's about more than me. Obviously it was sparked by some controversial language. I think that kind of is not sparked, but maybe jettisoned, add a little fuel to the fire. But it was already kind of underway with the spending and stuff like that. So, what is your overall opinion on this? And am I wrong about what caused it?
Well, my job as the mayor, um, I'm elected to the position, and I need to forge ahead with my duties, which I am doing my best at.
It's a lot of stress. I bet. I bet you could cut that with a knife. The tension.
Sometimes, but the recall is not something that I'm involved in or have
Mm.
a ton of knowledge about exactly what's going on. Obviously, it's going on. It's been in the newspaper. It's been in social media. There's folks involved with it. Um, that is in the charter, which
Yep.
is basically the city constitution.
Yeah, I use my artificial intelligence to write a very long thing
Yes.
about this, and it's the rules. They're there. So
Yeah, and so the charter was actually new this summer. That was uh, rewritten and
okay.
then I believe adopted by ordinance by the council. So, um, that's where the process is at. I think it exists for a reason. It might be statute, state level, that we have to have it or
Yeah.
not. But I don't think that my job in this instance is to have. I think I need to be indifferent about it in the sense that it's a democratic process.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
So, and that's kind of how I think I've stayed away from it. Um, and I think at the end of the day that the will of the constituency is going to long term be what drives the community, as does other boards. So how that's all going to play out, I don't know today.
Yeah, who knows, like overall, because not only after you have a recall, let's say it's successful, which I don't know, like the number is pretty low on what you need to get a recall, because it's out of who voted too,
Mm-hmm.
so it's extra low, and to get the amount of signatures doesn't seem to be that hard. However, I do think that the people who are doing it are putting in effort, so I shouldn't undermine like the effort that they're putting into it. They're setting up shop. They're getting a hold of people. I don't know everything about their. I asked Ed if he wanted to come on here in the future. We'll see if he
Okay.
does or not. The invitation's still open. He didn't say yes or no, and to find out a little bit more about the effort. But afterwards, there's still an election, and then
Hmm.
they did that recall in California, and everybody got voted right back in. I think, or everybody. It might have just been for the governor Newsom. I don't remember the
Okay.
whole thing, but it was a long time ago. Or no, it was probably like a year ago. Man, it like in the scheme of the nation, like time's been going by pretty fast lately. So, um, okay, I want to have a little sip of water, but um, we did have a question online when I was asking about people or asking for questions from people,
Hmm.
and one of them brought up about marijuana, and I'm not 100% sure about the rules, but it's like I think it's essentially legal and will be like even more legal like as like the laws and the licenses get doled out and all that type of stuff. Now there's some rules on like how much you can have and stuff like that. So my question to you is the city doing anything, or do you have any, even if the city's not, any opinions on how it could be handled, or if it even needs to be handled? On like the last mayor had mentioned to me before about like not having marijuana shops on Main Street or something like that. So that was just one idea I heard a while back,
Yeah.
years ago. So
So I'm not the most familiar with the process, admittingly, but is what I can say is that we have a committee that I sit on that's land use and legislation. So the idea of that committee is as things come along, that's where we review them and decide what policy ultimately we would take to council to vote on and either adopt or have a resolution. So um, our city attorney has been working on that, and we've been going through the options as a community. With it would end up being an ordinance. I'm jogging my memory a little bit here. I'm like I said, so
yeah,
I
there's a lot. I understand
I
if you don't know all the details, that's fine.
came in on the tail end of it, but um, there are some avenues that could be beneficial financially to the city
Okay,
if
that's
there
cool. You're thinking that they're thinking that way because there's a lot of
a co-op
potential. Okay.
in because of the licensing. And so my understanding also is that the tribes in Minnesota um, are heavily involved in it, like Red
Okay.
Lake. So I think they're looking for second and third markets where they can
Oh, okay.
wholesale product to and then have it sold again. But I'm not the
Yeah, I'm not an expert on it either. I'm very not very familiar, but I'm intrigued by Haley Silver's and her husband's business with the similar stuff. It's not marijuana, I don't think yet, but I think that that's what
Mhm.
they want to go into. So I follow them on Facebook, and it's just kind of interesting to me of something going illegal to legal, and then being the norm eventually, and like things smelling too much outside. So especially where I live. Anyways, okay. So, anything else about the marijuana land use? I think you probably touched on everything
Yeah, there'll be more information coming up on it.
there. Okay.
I'm guessing we would have something ready by the next couple months. I don't feel like we've been in a total
So
rush on it.
let me ask you. This is kind of, I guess, could be more of a philosophical question, but related to it. Um, I guess another thing that I saw at the county was they had in the paper something about like a hearing about them maybe only having one license. I know, like in a city, there's certain, or maybe in a city or in a county, there's a certain amount of liquor licenses and stuff like that,
Mhm.
and so that is normal. However, one seems to be kind of an un capitalistic number, and so that is kind of, I don't know that like 100 makes sense, but like the market would dictate it some way. Do you have any opinion on that specific thing? One or you know free market or anything like that.
Well, I have to ask Commissioner Schoblum about. I glanced over what was in the newspaper, and I didn't read it again, so I don't fully understand it.
Okay.
Was it your understanding that it limited to one license?
In the county, I believe.
And see, to the best of my knowledge, if I'm wrong, that's
Yeah, and
fine.
so if I'm giving him false facts, I'm pretty sure that's what it was because we were talking about it at the dinner table. So
So I think that probably falls under unorganized areas of Cooch County.
okay,
And I think it's up to individual municipalities like Rainier, International Falls, then to have a
okay.
policy either alongside or below it in the hierarchy.
Oh, sure. So okay, so I'll look further into that, and maybe have another question at a different time then.
I think.
Yeah, yeah, that's why I'm saying I'm not going to take you at that one since it is you prefaced it with maybe. Okay, so that's definitely enough on the marijuana stuff. Then and it was I really appreciate like this has been a great conversation even so far, like we've talked about so much meaningful stuff. We haven't this is like literally our first conversation, so I was really looking forward to it, just because like I almost knew nothing about him, so it's been a blast so far. Some other challenges we have in our community, and we can talk about plenty of good stuff too, because like I love this community. That's why I live here. That's why I started iFalls News. But I just feel like there's a lot that if I don't mention, people are going to be like, "Oh my gosh, why didn't you mention that?" You know. And I already got a little bit roasted for the last one for not asking certain things and not listening enough. So
We can always do it again.
yeah, no, that actually that's also a thing I was thinking was like, you know, if this is fun and people are getting what I hope they get out of it, we can definitely do it again, and as frequent as you know you can handle. You know, so okay, so we have some difficulties in this community, and one is childcare, which I will be hoping to do a live stream with a couple of ladies who are opening the St. Thomas or the daycare in St. Thomas.
Yes.
Super excited to meet with them. But as far as childcare goes, it is a huge problem and potentially a bigger problem because of economic development and getting young families back here. I don't know what your support system is. You have two young kids. Maybe they're in daycare, maybe they're not. Mine were with like family members a lot, so I had a different support system. But certainly, that everybody's not as fortunate as I was, and it could really prevent a lot of talent from coming back here and taking some of these jobs or moving back to our community. So, as far as childcare goes, what do you see as some of the solutions or hurdles, or what initiatives the city is already kind of pursuing, or what you just heard out there?
Yeah, well, it's everyone in every community across the state is real. I hear about
That
that
is true.
so much, and I'm familiar with it because my wife and I have a 10-month-old and a 4 year old, and they both go to daycare.
Okay.
And if for some reason that facility closed, um, I don't think grandma who lives down the street could take two boys 5 days a week. So it's evolved so much. To your point, I grew up, my mother was a homemaker, but I think that the stark reality for working families now is that a lot of times it takes two.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And so it's a seismic shift, and we're seeing this in different ways with ambulance service and different things. We're really fortunate with the Rainy River Rugrats, what's coming along. But it's one of
I look
the,
forward to finding out a lot about it.
yeah. And so really support all those efforts. And it would be nice on some of these things if eventually we could take a few steps ahead and not have to take too many backwards.
Yeah.
There are some state level things that could come into play, but now we're seeing projected state deficits. So I think some things that we really thought we were going to get some assistance or programming on could fall by the wayside. We don't know yet. I hope that there's young families that have it in their heart that maybe don't have childcare and maybe they start one of their own.
Yeah.
I know the
It's
licensing
yeah, well,
is,
it's such a pain. That's so my mom did daycare when I was growing up a lot, off and on. She had other jobs too, but like we'd move around a lot, so like daycare is easy to set up. And there's a lot of regulations, like a lot of organization. It's tough, and so I was a part of it. Some of the efforts through like the school board and stuff. And I don't know. I know there's a lot of smart people working on it, and I just the part of the solution is like they need to charge more, but the economy is not necessarily there for it too. So I'm going to segue into something here. In this community, we have what I would say a like an employee skill shortage at a lot of levels and different jobs that maybe people are that don't have the expertise are working above their level because that's there's and which can be great for those people for career development. I know like my business, we've trained a lot of the people who go out and work everywhere else for IT. A lot of the people, not the guy who works at the city now, but the guy before that was from
Okay.
here. And so you kind of have this like we get an employee and then they find something better. So our job and how we've adapted is like make things better for the employee, right? And so we keep on working and keep on working to get better. We have employees for longer. We have excellent employees, but it's hard to get employees up here, especially to move back. And the last person who moved back, who is working for us, who is one of our main technicians right now at the tier one level, is super great. And he moved back, and we were fortunate because he was going to move back in with his parents until he found a place. So he had that that thing that he could move into, like or or if somebody came back and had a friend or family or something that they could stay with. But housing is awful and in this community, and I know that there's some projects like to make some stuff better, like Woodland Park Apartments is getting a lot of improvements, and then there's some other stuff happening in the community, but the only new housing we've really had is Bacchus AB project, which is everybody loves it. So I'm not like I should say everybody. I don't want to speak for absolutes, but most people really like it. But it didn't do anything like for as far as like housing goes. And so we have a huge, huge, huge housing problem in this community, and the stock at all different levels is very hard to come by. So as mayor, how can you kind of affect that and maybe and I know you got to tear down a lot of these houses because they're bad, but
Some of
like
them,
people
yeah.
aren't putting new houses back up. On HGTV that I watch, they're always fixing these
Right.
bumps, but that's they got infinite money, but we don't have that same thing here.
Yeah, well, I think that the backbone of the whole issue is the housing. With we have jobs open in town. We
Yeah,
have
for
good
sure.
jobs open.
I think so.
When I ask a friend, hey, why don't you consider International Falls? We live here because it's great. Oh, where do I live? It's difficult to get a house in town. I think at all levels. Well, we know that. So I think we need to reanalyze what we've done to address the problem. And that's something that I'd really like to work on if we can get there with the council. I'm aware of, I think we're on our third housing study. Well, we already know that we need to build
Yeah.
houses. So we
Sorry, I don't mean to laugh, but like, how many times can you study something when you can just look, And I
at,
get it's necessary, but
at some point we have to buy some 2x4s and mix
Mhm.
some concrete
Or somebody needs to invest.
or find investment. I think that in this market that's probably hard to do on a large scale, like bring in a big developer.
Okay.
So I hope there's a grassroots solution, but I talked to a dear friend of mine in Roseau, Mayor Fabian, and they did a city owned development where they had come across land if there was wetlands, which is everywhere here,
Yeah.
mitigate it if you can or if you have the credits, put the infrastructure in, and then have lots for sale. Now that doesn't necessarily low, mid, high, but it's a start. So somebody wants to come to town and build a new house.
Mm.
Let's say it's you build a new house, and then theoretically you'll sell your house. And so you get kind of a shift where
Yeah, yeah,
someone
that's
moves in the starter house like I'm in with my family and hope to move up the ladder
I'm still in my first house too. I don't know
later
if you're in your
on.
first house, you didn't say that, but
First
I am.
house.
Yeah.
And we love it. So I think that there's different approaches to it, but I think we need to start doing, and there's a lot of projects that the city's interested in. But the vision of it, we're going to have to be realistic that it's going to be long term, that pathway. I don't think that it's
So there's no miracle coming. Basically, is kind of a way to say it. I think about that with economic development sometimes. I personally and I will only talk a little bit about my personal beliefs on this, but it's very important to me that our savior for this community, savior, it could be saviors or whatever. And I don't mean like in a Christian sense, but like the people who are going to build up this community are going to be from this community, in my opinion. And we need to grow the talent. And when I say from here, you move here, you be a part of the community, you're from here. I mean, like, you throw down some roots, and that's where the talent's going to be coming from. Is it's going to be kind of a homegrown thing, because for myself, like, I can't think of a different place I'd rather have my businesses than in this place. And I love the small town, and I love the community. I love the people, and there's a lot that I don't like about it. But in general, I really think the economic development really comes from here. However, I think historically, a lot of economic development plans were people trying to buy bacon trees, what I would call them, where like you go into the city council and you're like, hey, I got an idea for a bacon tree. And this is actually your predecessor, the old mayor, and we used to joke about this. That's why I'm
Oh,
bringing it
okay.
up. We used to say we could probably go sell half these city councils bacon trees, and they'd buy in on it because they're so desperate at that point, especially where we were at 20 years ago or 15 years ago in local economies. And so things were on the come up, and then there was COVID, and now there's a huge international crisis. Sorry to ramble so much. But back to economic development. It is important to keep your feelers out for these big, like, somebody's going to come here and maybe save us. But like also like things like green tech manufacturing are like so awesome if you've ever been in there,
Oh,
and it's
yes.
so cool, and like so many other things like that in our community where people are building up. I mean, not to toot my own horn, but I love my store too. Ronnie's is there's so many. I could go on about how many places are really stepping it up and are cool,
Absolutely.
but I just don't feel personally like it's going to be a huge one. However, my question is, after that rant, um, what initiatives do you got for that to build up the little guy, and also, maybe you do have some plans for like through keto or something like that, hoping to get some bigger people in.
Well, Kita is, to touch on that, Kita would typically be involved in that process. But then the city has the EDA,
Yeah,
which, is historically in the last few years, the EDA has paid out to do studies. We have a meeting on Monday night, and I'm going to be asking tomorrow for a report of how many projects do we have open, where are they, what do they cost, what does this look like,
mm-hmm.
trying to get a sense of when do they conclude and how can we invest or help going forward. We've had pilot programs and little loan guarantee programs like microloans, but this discussion is so broad and there's so many minds
That's true.
involved, but it comes down to attitude. The best solutions are homegrown. We got a big home run at Green Tech with you, with anybody who contributes to make the community a better place, contributes to our tax base. It puts food in kids' mouths. And so I think that we've always, to touch again on what you mentioned, we've always wanted another big high flying item. I think it'd be rare that we probably just fall upon that. We have a big high flying item. We have the paper mill,
Yeah, of
and
course.
so the we're not going to get industry into town because rightfully so. I don't think another horse is coming in the barn, but I think we can diversify as we've been doing into many other things. I mean, International Falls used to have an office supply store. Now we have small town
Yeah,
tech.
and we're not an office supply store. Don't come in here for stuff like that. We'll sell you a ream of paper.
So that's really evolved,
Yeah.
and how we act as citizens and consumers. And I think that there's a lot of local spirit um, to spend money locally. My shoes that I have on, I bought locally. I think I got them 2 years ago at Ronings. I bought these pants at Mason's on Main, and so I feel good about that. And I don't know that I might have saved money by shopping locally.
Yeah. Well, it
So
kind of depends. You know what I found out about on the business side of stuff, and we do sell a few things, but it's the bare essentials. We have like a couple shelves. But what I found is what you're actually paying for with a small town retail person is their expertise, and their supply chain is huge, because like acquiring this merchandise for the little guy is super tough. It's part of the reason why we really don't do a lot of it, and we were losing to like Amazon anyways. And what are you going to do? Like we have better things to do with our time.
Hmm.
And so it didn't really hurt me that we weren't doing retail. We weren't doing tons of it anyways. But yeah, it is funny how things change and what the downtown's looking like. I'm super excited about Ronnie's and their new look across the street. We've been kind of working on our store for a while, and I started across where the new Ronnie's was. I was in that building, and
Yep.
I haven't been in there yet. My wife and everybody else has, but I'm going to go in this weekend, and it's so cool looking. Just what I've seen so far. I think things like that can really spur on some of that homegrown economic development.
We're really seeing some nice investments in the community at all levels from that project, grocery store, hotels. I mean, so those are some big ones, but there's many smaller ones as well, and that's it. Never starts here. It starts as an idea.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to let our business people in town know that we support them and that we will do what we can as a city, hopefully, to help them on the journey. We don't have unlimited tools in the kit, but
Yeah, well, one so the biggest tool you guys have is taxes, of course,
mhm.
which goes back to bring it back to the jail and spending and stuff like that. A lot of people have been griping about their taxes going up. I know you're not raising our taxes. Well, I guess technically you will be if like that. You have that power, I guess, or whatever. But you personally aren't going around assessing our houses, and you're new within a year, and the big ticket items were kind of going before that for the most part. So I'm not like saying you're out there raising our taxes or anything like that. However, that is a lot of people's concern
Yes.
these days about the taxes going up, and how it is effectively crushing some of us, especially the people who aren't like wealthy, and even maybe people who are wealthy. I don't know, or well off. Maybe we should say. I don't know. I don't know how we rate people like that. But anyways, it's certainly affecting me and a lot of people that I know, and it doesn't. A lot of it's the county, so I know that there is a lot of that, but it also seems like a lot of our spending at the city could be driving it. And I don't know that, of course, it's springtime and it's early,
Mhm.
but I don't know that like there's a lot of improvements compared to how things used to be till now, like for getting better. Like roads seem to be getting worse again. It's like it was just winter yesterday, so but anyways.
Well, I can touch on that. The only way it, with some of the fear out there, some of the concern about spending and about taxes, whether it be county, so what affects us here, county, school district,
Oh yeah, school
um,
district.
and municipal, being City of International Falls, um, is to be transparent. Because my goal is to be able to sit down and explain in great detail why things are the way they are. The city last year, I believe the levy was set at 5.81%. I have it on my desk. I'm going to say that's it. Um, so we have a lot of people in the community. It's really come a long ways really quickly. I think that there's more than one factor there.
You mean for the ramp up or of the taxes?
Pre of really since the end of Mayor Anderson's term,
Okay, I'm
um,
trying to think. It just really,
which
yeah.
was 19.
Okay,
So I don't those aren't
but
those are
yeah, yeah, around, you're fuzzy numbers. That's fine.
fuzzy numbers. So uh, people are really engaged right now.
Yeah,
They
they
want to know
definitely.
why. Um, all jurisdictions have expenses, so we need to look ahead at what we have to have and what we're going to need. What are some wants, and then we need to be transparent about them. Um, I know that it's a very controversial topic, and I think we need to look at where we can save, and hopefully we can get a couple hits. We from time to time get some aid from other places, like for instance, what happen both city and county. So the county gets PILT, which is payment in lieu of taxes for state-owned lands in the county that the county can't tax.
Okay.
It's a big revenue source for the county. Well, they got a big bump in that, which property tax relief didn't have to levy as much. Well, 2 3 years ago, the city got a $500,000 increase in local government aid, which essentially is 40 50% of our budget anyway. So these things really matter, and that came from the state. Now, I don't think that they're with the state in the budget forecast shortfall that they're showing, forecasting, that any of that is coming soon. But I think we need to really hone in on our services and how are we providing them, and how can we get all these services out to people in a responsible way to the taxpayers, that most people can get their arms around. I don't think that there's going to be a magic bullet long term. Um, but, we touched on economic development. The easiest way out of this is build new buildings,
Yeah.
put more properties on the tax roll, be more productive.
Well, build more houses, right? Like
Right.
that's or not like you build more houses, facilitate or whatever, create the market or whatever the need. Well, there is the need. That's why I don't get it. Like with the housing, like I know that this town historically is economically maybe poorer than like other places, less boom and bust than maybe cycles on the range,
Hmm.
because of the the metals and
Right.
papers kind of been like kind of had the same trajectory forever, and it's not like going away but not like popping off, so they're just consolidating in different things, but and our parts of our mill aren't going anywhere for sure, so but um oh my goodness, I'm sorry, I literally it was just lost my train of thought because I
That's
was talking too
okay.
much. Oh my goodness. The what were we just talking about? This is gonna be. We're not editing this out, so
Well, we're talking about the
I can't believe I just
taxes,
glitched like that. But, all right,
and we were talking about the taxes and then
taxes. Yeah.
economic development, which is the easiest way to provide homegrown property tax relief. Um, One thing though that you mentioned about the Iron Range that very
Oh, that's what I
cyclical,
was talking about. Anyways, go on. Sorry.
that from time to time I hear comparisons of um, the Iron Range versus how are we different. I think the biggest thing is, um, so paper making basically is a renewable resource because you cut a tree down, you grow another
Mm-hmm.
tree. Um, the, the iron mining industry isn't. So they have what's called fiscal disparities on the Iron Range, which there's a production tax on every ton of taconite pellets, and it goes into a great big trust fund.
And they get a lot of extra money for different stuff.
And the idea was that someday there will not be mining because there's nothing left to mine.
Okay.
So how do they diversify out their economy and
Okay.
have something when the mines are all gone? That was the whole premise of it. So we don't have that here.
Yeah, that's part of like the IRRB or different
That's
things
it.
like that. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
So we do. The county does receive a very small stipend from
Yeah,
IRRB,
there's some for whatever I forget what. Yeah, but I remember that.
but we don't have that white horse, so to speak.
Or Grand Rapids had when the mill sold, all that money went into that Blandon Foundation that had to go back into it, and and we had back in the day we did. I would say we used to have not to like disparage PCA. I almost called it Boise, but PCA. Like they used to do a lot more in the community, like circuses and all kinds of crazy things. Like I mean, businesses don't do that stuff at all anymore, really. But I remember they used to do a lot more stuff, and they would have like fairs and different things like that back in the good old days. Um, but it does go back to the economic development thing about the homegrown part is when a big business like Super One, my youngest daughter works there,
Mm-hmm.
and my brother-in-law is a store manager, and but he has like a budget, right? Like he can give back so much to the community. They have a whatever. That's not how it used to be, and we're not going back like in a lot of ways. So like I'm not trying to say like we need to get a locally owned grocery store. However, it would be nice to have some like not be what some people would call a food desert where there's only one supermarket of food or stuff like that. They've had community markets in the past. But the big guy seems to always be pushing out the little guy. So my hope is as time keeps marching on, like you as a city and economic development really consider about what how you can help the little guy. So there's not a question there, but you can extrapolate on some things that you could do to benefit, look out for um, some actual initiatives that could be possible for helping smaller businesses or get started, or whatever.
from the startup. Well, I think that there's some more resources out there that maybe we're not as good at broadcasting, that there's help or resources available.
Like at the Kita office, there's the Small Business Administration, and don't they have three things out of that one off? Anyways,
Well, there's KETA, and then there's KCDA, which is Kuching County Development Association, and um, so I sit on that, and there's some money there. And now I forgot how we get the money, but it's legitimate, and so we give out kind of like microloans.
yeah, we got a grant to get a bunch of people trained early
Yeah,
on from that. I forget how much it was, maybe 1,500, 2 grand. We and then like we trained them, and like literally what happened was we told them that we needed the money because there's a need in the community. That's literally what happened. Is like they met the need, and the money was gone. And now we know how to train people
mm-hmm.
differently and stuff. But this was way back in the day
Yeah,
when we first started, when we were like, we need money.
right off the bat,
Yeah.
yeah, real critical stage. So I've seen some, I think, good things come through there. Um, but the city can do some things if it's property related, um, potentially with abatement. There is a limit to that. When the hotels came in simultaneously, there was a lot of abatement offered under state statute,
Okay.
to both. So there's a limit to that, though. um, but anybody could ask. But I think some of it is that there's been some family businesses that have kind of attritioned out. We talked about young people moving away
Hmm.
and then not coming back, and I can think of a couple examples where kids don't stay on the family farm anymore.
Yeah.
I like I like being at home. I've lived a lot of different places, and International Falls is obviously home. So, but we also need to improve on that, and to do that, we need feedback. Um, so,
Yeah. So in regards to communication, that is one thing that I think at all levels of government that people could do better. That's part of why I wanted to do this. Not because sometimes the temperature is hot, right? And the immediate reaction is to like pull back, but sometimes it's hot because people care, right? Like it is our government, it's a representative government. You're supposed to be working for the people you represent and have our best interests in mind. So when people think that you don't, of course they're going to get a little heated here and there, sometimes too much, but um I think that anxiety sometimes of like of dealing with the hard truths um is like pushes people away from getting involved or communicating better. For example, if somebody comes at either city administrator and is like, hey, what's this deal with here's I want to know about this, and they're angry because of taxes or whatever. Well, I'm not speaking for Betty. Like I like this is just an example. Okay, that she didn't do this or anything like
mhm.
that. But it would be very understanding for her to be like, I'm gonna put this one off for now. I got enough stuff to do, and she does. Like, right, she's a busy lady at the there. Ken had a lot to do when he was there. Like, maybe didn't get to some of it, but like I remember his desk. It was nuts. She's probably a little more organized than him.
I don't remember that because I hadn't been
Oh,
in, but
it was crazy. I was like, "You back there, Ken?" Anyways, so I think that like increasing communication, outreach, and being proactive in the community. Not just doing stuff at city council, maybe having ways. I think you have a communications person. I think so, or somebody who's doing some of that. I don't know the complete role, but it'd be nice to see some more outreach on behalf of the county or county city before some of this stuff gets so hot. Like, I think it would take down a lot of the tension. I think that this conversation right here could potentially take down a little bit of the tension in the
I'd
room.
want it to.
Yeah. So if there's anything else you want to detensionize really quick, we can. I don't know. That's probably not the right word, but
You touched on something really important with the communication. I think some of what's going on with some of the tension or fireworks or whatever term you want to use to describe it in city limits, in our city, in our town, is that projects get shopped for interest.
mm-hmm.
And the only way you can do that is to build consensus. And for me and the council, that's our job. So when we embark on big things and dramatic change is always the hardest in a small town. We tend to have habits. So we really need to build consensus around ideas before we move. Um, I'm not saying that has or hasn't been done, or I'm part of it now, so I'm not going to grade it. The
Yeah.
public can grade that, but we really need to make sure that we're following some of the desires that the public wants, because I know that our constituents um, know that the city has needs like infrastructure, like roads. We've talked about the water plant a lot. I haven't had any um, terse calls about the need to supply clean piped water to our homes and businesses. You get do we have to do it this big? Do we have to do it small?
Yeah,
Can we
sure.
phase it? Can we tier it? But so really start at the core of things and build consensus around ideas. Um, so that communication piece, I want to be good at it and getting better all the time.
Getting better is, I think, the most important part of, like, especially being in your first year of doing it. Well, it might be over a year now. I think. I don't know. Anyways, like, my timeline is so off. I work so many nights, like through the night, that I don't even know what day it is anymore, other than like if I have something coming up. So, I the last major topic, and unless you have something that you'd like to discuss that we haven't touched on, that maybe we touched on before or whatever, but there are some instances. I did a comprehensive deep research using artificial intelligence on what collaborations between the county and the city are being double taxed, or some unfair imbalance. It wasn't necessarily double taxed. It was like, for example, the library. The majority of the budget comes almost entirely from the city, except for like $26,000. However, the use of that is by everybody in the county. I love the library, so I don't want, like, I'm not trying to raise any stink. I'm just using it as an example. I think everybody is actually like, Diane is like the best librarian in the world. I couldn't say
She's
enough.
great.
Yeah, she's ridiculous at her job. Like, so anyways, but so I don't want to like badmouth the library, but it is an unfair taxation. There's the airport, where I know 95 or more percent of the budget does not come from local. It's like 5%, and then that's split between the county. And that's a fuzzy number. But the point is, it's split between the county and the city.
Mm-hmm.
So if you live in the city, you pay 2/3 of that extra share because you're being taxed twice, because you're also being taxed as a county person. So if you don't know about this, that's fine. It's something you can look into. But there's other examples like that. And so, were you aware of this type of financing for these things? And do you have, like, is there anything to change that? Like, for example, there's an people do ambulance taxing districts, airport taxing districts,
Mm-hmm.
instead of like how it's done now. So, anyways, I don't know all the ins and outs. That's just a little bit of my research I've done so far.
I've got to point to something. So I was on iFalls News,
Okay. Well,
and
thanks.
I was looking at some of your research, and I
Mhm.
know you've been working on that through AI, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I saw like 5 days ago you posted an article on this, And I was shocked at all of the things that it caught or you found
Hmm.
that I hadn't necessarily thought
Yeah,
of.
like because there's a lot, and that's why I like it. Actually, it kind of makes me think about other things. So
So it's been helpful. So you touched on the airport, which is the joint powers agreement, the library, um,
mhm.
and there was 7, 8, 9, 10 things. Fire department,
Yeah,
um,
because they, of course, they're going to put out fires. There's
and
and
how
stuff.
rural fire
Yeah.
pays for their protection, which is typical with
Yeah,
townships.
so a lot of this is like, even though it's unfair, the article did say like this is somewhat normal. Like some in some cases, it said that.
Yeah, that's. I think that a lot of this is spawned by battling or disagreements between different government entities. I could give, which I'm not going to give, but probably an hour worth of my own testimony of our neighbor Rainier and some differences that we've had and how I think we could fix them, some differences
Sure.
we've had with the county. With the library, we either have a library or we don't, and we
Mm.
have a good one. And
We
I
have a
don't,
great one, yeah, for sure.
a great one. And my son, we get videos when he visits with his daycare classmates, and so that's great. Um, and I think that some of it was also spawned like Councillor Ragnar, who'd served for a long time, and I visited with her over the years, and I think that the city has at least used to, and whether we still do or not, I hope we do, but was really looking at where could they find every dollar to put into the community, and I think it's kind of expanded. Taxing districts are a solution. I think they're a good solution. They're very viable. The interesting thing about the taxing district is the legislature cannot authorize a taxing district unless the parties involved want to create one. And one of the issues we've had is that basically most things that would be taxing district related are International Falls, Rainier, and the county. So there's a third wheel involved. And how do they keep everybody happy enough in the
Mm.
control element? So I don't know that it ever can change. That be changed. I would sure hope so.
Yeah,
Um, Typically, I think people want our services. We're really good at that. We're the hub for the whole county. But then everybody wants a crack at the Dove Island tax value
sure,
or
yeah. Mhm.
capacity because there's a lot of property wealth out there that falls in the county. So I think some of it has really, I looked at all those different things and I thought, you know, are we supposed to sit down with all these people at the end of every year and say, you owe me, I owe you? I don't,
Yeah.
you
So,
know,
but I mean, I do get that. It is like in a lot of cases, it like law enforcement, for example, was on the list. You want like I couldn't even imagine a world where you'd be like, no, city police officer, don't go help that guy in the county, and vice versa. Like, and they wouldn't do that. Like, that'd be crazy. At least as far as I know about police officers, they would never like stay within their jurisdiction. So,
and that to your point, I think that some inequity, if you want to call it that, exists everywhere to a
mhm,
degree. But the other thing, like you have a business partner, and
mhm,
I've had a couple different businesses that I had partners in, and um, I've had situations like where I had a business in Canada that I had a partner with while I ran the business. Well, I got more than half because I was getting the benefit from it. I was also
sure,
doing the work. So I think that there's multiple ways to look at it all. I know that with some of those things that you've brought up, there has been work towards a solution. At the meet and greet this morning, the topic was um, up about, how are we going to keep this ambulance viable? And we have an amazing ambulance service, amazing paramedics, amazing EMTs, amazing drivers, everyone. And that's an example of every call I get about the ambulance is how do we keep it?
mhm.
We want to pay for that. And so I think the county's hearing that. I think everybody's hearing that.
Yeah, that so as this is my understanding, most of that, not all of it. I do think that there's probably some opportunity for better management of it. However, the overall situation is people can't afford to pay their bills, correct? Like more or less, and that there's no way to like if you can't pay your ambulance bill, what are you going to do? You can't collect that, essentially. That's my understanding of
Well, the over time it's changed.
it.
Inflation
Okay.
costs have gone up. We pay people more because of cost of living. And so the Medicare Medicaid issue is that the reimbursement rate for the ambulance when it goes on a transfer or a call has uh, I think it's like 1987. It's a long time ago since that
Oh,
reimbursement
one of
rate.
those things that never went up. Yeah.
So,
Okay.
like I was one time digging through some records and, you look back at like what a business took in 30 years ago compared to now, what it takes to keep it viable. And so now that share is falling on whoever has the ambulance. We have another interesting thing locally, the length of our runs, and when we have to take a transfer, we go to Duluth a lot of times. And in the Twin Cities, hospitals fight over ambulances because they get the hospital bed
Okay.
at the end of the run, so they can do it profitably. It's all integrated. Um, so I think that there's really growing will out there to keep this service viable.
Well, what happens even if you don't? Like, I mean, what do you even do if you don't have an ambulance service?
Well, the city of International Falls has the ambulance certificate, so it's our ambulance, and I I can't imagine a day that
Yeah.
we didn't have an ambulance, so that wouldn't be good. So I think it's one of those things where the best option is to find the best solution, and I know that the council has had those discussions for a long time. I'm optimistic with the county board, what I'm hearing bits and pieces from them. Um,
And you've been collaborating, like before we got on, we were only chatting for a second, but you had mentioned about collaborating with the county board
mhm.
more, and perhaps historically how that's been kind of a challenge, which I've never understood. But like, I'm not on the inside, so I mean, I had pretty good, insight onto what was happening and stuff, but still, like sometimes I just think like things could be worked out. I don't get it. um, Maybe it's one of those things where I also don't get why Canada and us fight at hockey games either. So, but like maybe I'm just naive, like because maybe I left for a little bit too long or something. I don't know.
Rivalry tradition.
Yeah, maybe you guys just have to duke it out because you guys are the, I don't know what your mascots would be. Anyways, a little bit more reality. So, but anyways, collaborating with them is important to you. I know you had mentioned before that. So if you wanted to touch
Well,
on that a bit.
well, I know that I can't go pull a deal out of the county boardroom and go in with a bunch of finger pointing and say that you owe us for all these things, and you either do that or we're done. Um, so I would like something favorable to come out of it. That's been a hot button deal with the ambulance, that if we get a transfer out of city limits and there's a loss on it, that still falls on the city taxpayer.
Sure, yeah.
Um, when we got in the ambulance business a long time ago, 25 years ago or more, 20 years, whatever the number is, the ambulance was profitable. That hasn't changed because anybody's doing anything wrong. It's changed because of inflation, healthcare costs, staff costs, and the rate. We, we can't charge enough, and
Expenses are nuts.
we can't recoup our costs
Mm.
because of the reimbursement rate. But I want the takeaway to be that the ambulance is something that is really vital to our
And
area.
everybody's pulling for it. That's kind of on in the works, I guess, maybe.
Yeah, there's a lot of support
Okay.
for that service.
That's good. They actually have it's on the events page at iFalls News. They have a pancake feed coming up, so make sure to support that.
Yeah.
Okay, so the last thing I wanted to touch on was, and this is the absolute last one, unless again you have something you want to say, is I'm actually very amazed. I follow politics very closely, and you were a writing candidate, and I think to finish on something lighter, it's crazy how much you won by for a writing candidate, and that you are very fortunate. Your name is very easy to spell, right? Like the good thing, like it's not like Dilopalickable, like I don't know, like you don't have some Polish name or something up here right now. But so that is very fortunate. However, that's not why you won. So I wanted to say congratulations on running a successful writing
Thank you.
campaign. That's kind of cool, and also very challenging. And uh, to tie it back to the original part, you ran for like a specific reason. It wasn't the money. You didn't know what it was, or you didn't know what the money was. You might have known what your reasons were.
Mm-hmm.
But with that, we talked about a lot of our challenges.
Right.
But you obviously love it here. So, what are the things that like you really think we have going for us? And if you forget some, don't be like, oh, he forgot some. I'm sure he could name a lot more. But what are the things that jump to mind about like what do we have going for us? What are you looking forward to? Let's leave on kind of like some kind of positive note for all the people who are still with us.
The attitude's going to win. When I was in Fort Francis today visiting with Mayor Hallekas, shockingly, we talk about differences between countries, and they're having many of the same struggles that we are fundamentally, and we're having a lot of the same struggles here that other cities in the state are having. Our attitude is how we're going to fix it with the solutions. We talked about housing. We talked about the little guy starting a bit or the little gal starting a business. All of those things, and I think that as that comes together, there seemed to be a low level of interest in government. We need to change that. Um, I hope that uh, whether I rerun for mayor or whatever happens, I hope that there's 5 people in the race. We need ideas.
Yeah,
Um,
because that's why you ran initially. Was there well for one of many reasons was or you could elaborate, but is there was one person running essentially, right? Like there wasn't, but like Pete was going to win if you weren't going. I mean, you don't have to say that obviously, but like that's what was going to happen, and so Pete would have won if you didn't hop in the race, and so it was essentially one person running. I don't even remember actually everybody, but the other people didn't get that many votes. And one person even kind of withdrew when you hopped in, essentially, I guess, something like that.
well, and that it's really humbling to have had that and now get to serve the community. And I don't take it lightly because there's expectations of leadership that I want to provide. I'm not going to get it right 100% of the time, but I will do my best. But, on those positive notes, whether we have a stigma or not, we have everything here. We have a national park.
Yeah,
We have
that's an
Canada.
asset.
We have treasures. We have land. We have water. We have timber. We have jobs. We determined we don't have many houses for sale. So if we touch up a few things with the attitude and take every win, whether it's this big or the big one we want, I think we can get. We talk about the declining population here.
Yeah,
I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about the productivity.
yeah, making it great for who's here and everything. I've always said that is like, I mean, people do want a tax base and increasing or whatever, but like, I'm like, well, we could make what we have pretty awesome too.
Yeah,
I know like a lot of it is volunteerism in the community and
yeah.
stuff like that, and not everything should be done by volunteers, but I mean, a lot of it is, and there's a lot of volunteerism in this community. You speak about you're talking to the Fort Francis mayor. One thing that we have that I think that we have way better than them is our homeless problem. I don't know. That's probably politically charged to say problem, whatever. But the homeless situation, like there is a homeless situation here, and it looks different. But like, it's really not as when you go over there. It's not the same at like Plithers Point Park sometimes, or with the tents and all that type of stuff. You don't really have that here. There is some, so I'm not saying in any town, but servants of shelter is really one of those positive things I see in our community that I kind of bring them up just on a whim sometimes because I'm like so happy like every time I know that they have a hard job and there's stumbles, but like I feel like that's one of the things that we don't even realize is happening in our community, and they're one of those heroes, you know.
Well, they are, and I was visiting with my mom that she had a whole basket full of new towels. I said, "What did you run out of towels?" She said, "No, I'm taking them to servants." Um, we do have that volunteerism, and there's just need at all levels. We're full everywhere, um, but we have people stepping up to the plate and advancing, um, those interests that help the community. If we didn't have things like that, what would we have? Where would
It'd be a lot. Yeah, it's
where would those people be?
and
So
I think hopefully we can build on some of that, get some of that. There's a lot of people who are a lot more positive about me and positive than me in the community about the community, and that gives me a lot of hope. I don't think we're to a point of no return. I think we definitely have a lot of potential, and we have still, like you said, everything we need to grow, minus a few things that we don't that we can work on. And I hope that over time you'll come back and we can talk about maybe some of those things as they progress, and hopefully you can be like, this is what we've been doing now on some of the housing challenges or childcare or whatever, some updates in the future. So
I I really appreciate it, and I hope that in the next couple 3 years here, we can find some pathways forward with what we have and live inside of our means as a city, and
balance that budget.
have some victories going forward. But really enjoy this and appreciate the opportunity. And thank you for doing this for multiple reasons, but for the community as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, sir. I
Absolutely.
appreciate it. Oliver, if you're back there, you can cut it. I'll get up too just in case.